Yes!
It has begun.
Just I feel a little tingle. A clap. I wanted to say, I didn't even tell you this. I like to spring things on you.
Oh, good.
I'm going to plug the fact that you can just listen to the audio of this at my Substack, Dead Reckoner. I'm going to do it at the top because who knows who listens to the end of all these things.
Well, and you know, I've always felt like because I do a solely audio podcast, I always found that talking about movies, you know, if you're not doing the cuts to the trailers, you know, some people who do YouTube know how to do these really articulated.
People like this. They tune in for the homoerotic tension between us.
Well, I mean, there is that. There's
and
always
the fact that you're very attractive, and I'm working on it. I'm working out. You just got yourself a new girlfriend.
I mean, 2 years.
2 years. It's COVID. Feels like it could be 2 weeks.
Look,
time feels very compressed.
It's interesting.
She seems new. She certainly is new compared to the woman I live with who puts up with me.
Oh, that's
for these many years.
Yeah,
what I'm saying
that's
is
a lot.
What I'm saying, if anything, you look better since you started dating. So
happiness will do that to you.
Yeah, I know. You have a glow. You have a glow about
aura. You. Yeah.
So you can watch here.
Yes.
To get that sexuality and that homoerotic tension, just that erotic energy that we provide. But if that's too much for you, because you don't want to be sitting at your desk or whatever, getting hot and bothered.
This could be not suitable for work material.
That's right, SFW. So you can just listen to the audio, which is also sexy because we got sexy voices and we talk about sexy stuff. But it's not, I think, as sexy as the video.
I will say, my voice is not bad.
We give you options.
My voice is not bad.
You've got a lovely voice.
Well, thank you.
You got the total package.
You know, my grandfather worked in radio. My dad worked in radio.
The only thing you're missing is that killer instinct, I think. You're not willing to, walk over the corpses of your enemies to succeed.
No, that's a little bit. Oh,
Whoa.
Oh, we do have a cat, yeah.
Oh, that's the other thing is you can get some cat footage.
Yeah, you might get some cats.
So we're going to talk about two masterpieces of the cinematic oeuvre today. Sonic 2.
Sonic 2.
I think it's just called Sonic 2.
Is it Sonic the Hedgehog 2?
I was expecting it to have a subtitle. They usually do, but I don't think this one did.
No, they're going for the power, the ember, the power gem.
Yeah.
The power gem. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the power gem.
And then the mononymed ambulance.
Ambulance. I'm excited to talk about that one.
So Sonic 2 is a movie about Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yes.
Sonic the Hedgehog, I remember very fondly, thank you, Pete and Bertie Thelen, I don't know if you're listening, you buying me Sega Genesis.
That's fantastic. I never had a Sega Genesis.
This is when... Well, yeah, I'm older than you. What was your first gaming system?
Well, I wanted a Super Nintendo. For the longest time, and then my parents were like, no consoles in the house.
What?
Yeah, they were pretty anti video games for a little while.
My parents better than yours.
I'm
sorry, Kyle's parents.
They gave in to we had some Game Boys, and I had it was a Sega handheld device, and I forget what that was called. I played Sonic on that device.
I remember this thing. I don't remember what it was called either.
But
back when before cell phones, before everyone had a cell phone, people would have purpose-built portable gaming systems.
And
although people still play the Nintendo 2DS thing, or 3DS,
I mean, I got a Super Nintendo. I got
that thing's still out there. But
N64 was where they broke. They
broke on the N64. Okay, yeah. I mean, I go all the way back. Actually, so my half brother, who didn't live with us, but who we'd see. Cast off to be first a ColecoVision, which is kind of in the Atari era, and then a Nintendo, an NES, an original Nintendo. So I had that, and then Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, all the PlayStations, whatever. I mean, but yes, I do distinctly remember on a Christmas morning getting a Sega. Actually, I was with my half brother, and I got the Sega Genesis with they'd pack in games, and so Sonic was the packed in game, and he got a Sega Genesis with Arnie Palmer Golf packed in. And
interesting.
So we played both of those. So a little autobiography there. I did play Sonic the Hedgehog growing up.
Me too.
I cannot say as though I have I have more of a deep affinity, I guess, for Mario because I was more of a Nintendo guy. But also that's
yeah.
But Nintendo was just much bigger than Sega. I mean, Sega peaked with the Genesis. They released a next generation console, a CD console called the Dreamcast, which kind of flopped, and then pretty much just became the sort of curator of what properties they had that still held value. Apparently, Sonic is. You know, one of my daughter's in first grade. One of her little friends, a huge Sonic Hedgehog fan, Hedgehog fan. So clearly a character with some staying power, as evidenced by the movie we both saw. I mean, I'm assuming you saw it. I don't know that you had to review it, but you elected to see it.
I watched it. My relationship with Sonic is interesting because. I've found a renewal in awareness for the mythology and lore of Sonic, the ever-expanding sense of it, because Katie's niece and nephews love Sonic the Hedgehog, and they play all the games.
I mean, clearly has appeal and staying power as a character. You'd have to say,
and like the Power Stone, the Emerald, or whatever it is that they're trying to find in this movie, I was aware of it. I was aware, like this is lore that other people might not be aware of, but it was brought to my attention.
You're deep into
because they were playing a game. They were literally playing a game where they had to go around and find these stones. And that is the point of the game.
Honestly, a pretty bog standard conception for a platformer game, right? Yeah. You have to go to different places to collect things.
Absolutely, and
I would say this is the premise of many a video game.
This movie follows that quite in a formula that is to its advantage, but I also, so everyone should know. Did you see the first movie? Did you see the first?
I did not see the first movie. I thought I should.
There's no point in doing that.
I mean, I will say that I don't know if everyone at home knows this, but I'm kind of a brain genius, so I was able to just come in on number 2 and just follow it, right? You might not be able to do that, and that's I haven't done anything to cultivate my brain geniusness. It just is something I was given by God or genetics, depending on what you believe in. And so I was able to follow it. You have to decide for yourself whether you're up to that challenge. I don't know. That's a personal choice. If you have not seen Sonic 1 but want to jump in on Sonic 2. Yeah. But I think if you have the acumen, you can probably do it.
So the energy, the style, the referential humor for our modern times, such as flossing as a dance, which Jim Carrey does in a kind of a intentionally embarrassing kind of I'm an old person trying to be youthful kind of way. For me, the entire franchise, these two movies, feels as though it is adults trying to connect with a younger audience that they just have no idea how to talk to. And so there's this particular energy that I think a lot of kids will just embrace, and there's slapstick antics, there's cheesy one-liners or bits between characters that I'm sure appease the younger audience, and I know that Katie's family enjoyed the hell out of it because
I was in a pretty full theater, and
I was not.
People were hyped. I mean, people were hyped. That was as hyped as I've seen an audience post-COVID.
Yeah, people
were excited. It was like a 7:30 opening night show, so it was pretty full show. It was in a Dolby theater. So if you brought your family there, it probably cost you $100.
Yeah,
to bring it to
an insane amount of money,
which is amazing to me.
So the first Sonic came out right before pandemic started. Came out in February, I think.
Our pandemic life bookended by Sonic movies.
Yeah,
hopefully bookended.
Yeah, I know.
Inshallah.
But I was the sour puss coming out of that.
No,
show. I was the sour puss.
No, say it ain't so.
Surprise!
Sometimes you have to play against type.
Surprise! I walked out, and everybody else had a great time watching that movie. They loved Jim Carrey's over-the-top demeanor.
I mean, to call his demeanor over the top is really not to do justice to whatever it is true. He's doing.
It is insanely
he's
exaggerated.
Doing some sort of it's like clowning. Like he's really taken
it's
the thing that he's done
it's
often.
vaudeville for the social media age. Like it is insanely
it's
heightened.
it's coked up. It's like it's meant to. It gives you bits that could very easily be turned into a GIF or a meme, right? Just like little 5-second chunks of him just being wild, right?
Yep.
Just being crazy. I mean,
unhinged.
I
Like,
will.
he's just
I
unhinged.
will say this. You can. Jim Carrey is such a bizarre figure in this world. I mean, when you think about a guy who went from, being a funny, but when you think about In Living Color, right?
Yep.
You think about a really funny guy, but not a guy who you would have picked to become an A-list celebrity if you watched him play, Fire Marshal Bill or whatever.
No. Yeah.
And then he becomes that guy. He becomes, for a period of time, thanks to Ace Ventura,
Ace Ventura, Mask, Dumb and Dumber, all in the same year.
Yeah,
but
but
Ace Ventura is
the one that launches him.
launching point.
Some of those movies, which I think are legitimately great. I think The Mask is legitimately a pretty great
Super
movie.
Fun. Yeah.
We talked about Truman Show.
Truman Show's great.
He does Eternal Sunshine, so he does some serious roles or some tragic comic roles that really work. I think Cable Guy is an underrated movie.
Yeah, it is now a cult film.
I like Cable Guy.
Cable Guy's better than, say, some of the generic stuff that started to replicate from the Ace Ventura Dumb and Dumber age, like Liar Liar. Like Cable Guy's more interesting.
That was definitely when we were getting the copy point. But when you have that kind of, when you become a franchise like he did, you're gonna get movies like that, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna get people saying, "Let's do that
with Jim Carrey.
Let's do that just a little different, right?
Yeah.
Let's do that guy just a little different
in a different setting." Yeah,
he has some sort of a personal crisis, right? And I know a little bit about this because I was working at Homeboy Industries, and he was around. He would come around. He funded like a counseling thing. He'd get very into like meditation. I think he had a personal tragedy involving a girlfriend.
I think he did.
Or something like that, and he sort of reemerges, and I have to say, I mean, an absolutely S tier physical comedian, right? I mean,
oh my goodness.
Cannot be certainly this side of Robin Williams, right? A just tremendously gifted physical comedian, right?
The way he knows how to use his body, the way he knows how to accentuate it via a joke or to articulate something, there is no comparison. I think he is a master of the craft. And for me, though, and this is what
I feel like where I was going with that
was
just to finish the thought.
Yeah,
is like, there's nobody else. Whatever you think about this, he's the one. Can't think of anyone else doing this.
Well, even to the point where he's talking about retirement, and the filmmakers of Sonic said they will not replace him.
Yeah,
if he chooses not to come back.
I mean, I can't. You talk about things that you could count on one hand. This, I think, you can count on one finger. I cannot think of any other actor. You'd have to get a new villain. You just would have to kill him.
Which I think they are moving in that direction for this.
Yes.
This franchise. So this is so interesting to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog because I think the first movie is middling. I think it is not as fun as it thinks it is. I think they mistake energy and frantic chaos in the rapidness of its movement through plot, narrative, and dialogue for fun. And for me, it becomes exhausting. It becomes very exhausting. I will say this. So that describes the first movie quite accurately. The second movie is sort of an improvement in knowing how to focus that forward momentum, because it really is just constantly moving forward without you having any orientation or question. They have set up expository modes throughout the process narratively, so that you just don't need to understand what's going on. You're just moving forward with the adventure. And to its credit, if you want to compare that to how the video game is, you're moving forward through the thing, through these these adventures, and that's how it goes.
But I think that's one thing to its credit, though, because to me, like, propulsive adventure is the way to do it. I mean, when I think about the adventure movies that I love, that are classics, like Star Wars or Raiders, I mean, that's what they do.
Yes,
they are very propulsive movies. I think one thing that's been lost in all of this sort of everyone just kind of holds a movie like the original Star Wars out as a kind of touchstone, but I think we've lost the actual lessons of that movie, which is that you pick a story that doesn't require exposition because the characters are all archetypal, and so you can just invest in this propulsion, right, of a story that never kind of gives you the option to let up. But I think people confuse, this goes to something you said earlier, people confuse energy of the story with energy at any given moment. Like, you still need to have it breathe, right?
I agree.
Like, the propulsiveness of the narrative is about keeping it developing without having to have some clunky, awkward exposition. Or including some storyline that just doesn't. It's like when we talked about the Batman, or we talked about Morbius. Like, all of these movies now feel like they have to insert this bullshit romantic story. And the romantic story that ultimately develops in Star Wars between Han and Leia is very thin, and it just kind of comes and goes and boom.
It's a tension point rather than
and it's not like we have to spend. But so you can. So I do think and I think there are things to like about Sonic 2, but I do think it can mistake the sort of frenetic nature of like keeping it frenetic all the time versus having a story that is propulsive. I think people make that. I think we make that error
all the time.
Right?
All the time. I think especially with children entertainment, because it's meant for children. They know the children want to see this product. The parents are coming anyway. They do not have to appeal to the parents.
But you pointed out earlier that there is this sort of, Shrek style one for me, one for you thing where it's like some of the Jim Carrey shit, and particularly the like, I mean, there's some jokes, like, I mean, when his assistant is kind of like dressing him up in, like, I mean, that's like a pretty adult joke.
That is. Well, and then there's even pop culture references only for adults. Like Ben Schwartz, who voices Sonic the Hedgehog, does a Ralphio callback. One of his more famous characters from Parks and Rec. And that is clearly for people who know who he is. That's not for any child in the audience.
You don't think they're all Parks and Rec
fans? They're not all Parks and Rec fans. They're definitely
not.
John Ralphio fans. But I'm a John Ralphio fan. I do like his work on Parks and Rec.
I love the episode where they have like the startup, and they just spend like, who do they get? Like George Murasan, or it's someone like that.
Yeah, it's man,
some ridiculously tall basketball player.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's so funny.
But yeah, it's so. Anyways, enough about John Ralphio.
Well, so. What I was going to say is that momentum is good for, I think, children. I think even for the adults to just feel like this is moving and we're not going to be here for too long. The movie, unfortunately, is 2 hours, which
too long.
It's too long.
But I feel most of that is the final sequence. I felt fine.
Oh, it's so
I felt fine
out.
with the pacing of the movie until the giant robot's on the scene, and then the movie just like.
Much like the same thing with like Turning Red, where it's just giant monster. It becomes more of a spectacle feature.
Yeah,
you're like, okay.
But with Turning Red, it was less a problem with, like, this is a problem with the actual way that sequence is constructed. It's just way too long. Versus in Turning Red, I feel like the bigger problem is that it's kind of an anticlimax.
Yeah,
right?
It's an anticlimax.
This isn't an anticlimax.
It is the climax.
I mean, this is they have to fight. I mean, that's fine. Like. That's the way the movie has to end.
Sure.
Nobody denies that, right? This movie isn't going to like defy your expectations about that.
Yeah.
And I don't expect it to. It just goes too long.
Yeah,
There's too many twists and turns, and what about this? What about that? Blah 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 blah. It just, I mean, if you take 15 minutes out of that, you bring in the movie an hour 45. I think I'm somewhat happier, because I definitely in that fight I just sort of
zoned out.
It was like, okay, because you know what's going to happen. And like I said, it's fine. We all know what's going to happen.
Yeah. it's how it's done is usually
you want to watch. The point is to, and it takes away, and it's funny, right? Because there are other sequences that I think are like very well structured, right? Like I think the whole thing in Hawaii after they got captured is funny.
Well, I'm actually a little on the opposite on
that. I liked the sister character and that whole dynamic.
So I just thought that was funny. Sequence was stretched out. They needed something. What's pretty obvious about it is they needed the human actors to have something to do, to be part of it and give them a part of the adventure.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. There are some fun things about it. Being the sister-in-law sister. His wife's sister, James Marsden's wife's sister. She is a lot. She's a lot in the first movie, obviously. I mean, you could probably tell. And
they allude to some beef.
Oh yeah,
some beef
and that persists, and that's fun. But I thought it got stretched out a little. With some of the sequences, it gets stretched out a little long. Some of the sequences don't even make a lick of sense, even when they are fun. Such as, and it is a very well orchestrated sequence, is the Serbian dance-off, which is quite fun. But
I think it's Siberian. I
Siberian.
I was going to say
Serbian.
Was it Serbia?
No, Siberian.
Yeah, anybody can make that mistake. Yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
Well, and it's funny.
That was one of the more pleasant parts of the movie.
What's so odd about it is the entire time they're like holding these animals who have superpowers. They're just going to throw them in the fire.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, just run away? Like, you can get away from these guys. This is not... There is no real sense of danger here. And that's why it's okay, it's forgivable, because the sequence is supposed to be funny. And the guy, whoever the guy is, who's the main dancer with basically a tattoo of himself on his chest, sells that scene immensely. That guy is the savior of that sequence.
Yeah, this movie suffers more than most from creating problems if you think about it, because there are a lot of moments where you're like, dude, this guy can run really fast.
Yeah, just run real fast.
Yeah, like you could solve all your problems. How did you get captured?
Because also that's the thing in the original movie. He moves so fast. It's like Quicksilver in X-Men. In the first movie, he's like able to jump, and they do it in this one when they're in the Siberian mountains, where he's jumping from missile to missile and throwing and it's kind of a repeat from the first movie visually and action wise, but he moves so fast that he moves faster than a rocket, and you're gonna and people like freeze, and you're gonna tell me he could be picked up and threatened to be thrown in the fire by a human
some
being.
Rando.
Yeah, I'm like, no, this is illogical. It's dumb.
I thought it was a pretty funny bit of homage to put him essentially in like that scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes, and that is
right, and
essentially what it is.
Do a spin on that. It works in the sense that it's entertaining to watch. But I mean, the problem with a creature like Sonic is that, given his power set, only the fights with his initial antagonist Knuckles make sense.
Yes, yeah.
Because if you can't match him power for power, he can just go way faster than you.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you need to invent like his kryptonite, right? But they don't even try to do that.
They have not done that yet. They have not done that. I will say, so this is the thing about the momentum, and this is what initially bothered me in my watch. And again, this is not... everyone needs to keep in mind, I am the sourpuss on Sonic the Hedgehog. If you liked the first one, you're definitely going to like this one. This is much better.
People seem to agree that this is better. There seems to be consensus around this being better.
No, this is much better. This is much better. It's just moving forward. For me, though, this is the problem with, and this might be just the problem with the writing team and the creative team behind it, that didn't even realize or anticipate that they would get a second one. And so,
also happened with Star Wars, right?
Also happened with Star Wars.
They weren't sure
they weren't sure.
Another.
They weren't sure. And so with this one, but that's different. So this is the thing: you need to approach your story with. George Lucas knew the story he was going to tell almost obsessively. through multiple chapters, and he started with this particular mode because that was feasible.
Well, maybe the Sonic guys they're not as into cocaine though.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not.
They can't just write reams and reams of
or
barely coherent.
or using Dune as their their tome to copy.
Well, that's funny. I mean, that's a rabbit hole. I will say that as much as I love Dune, I think that they have less of a beef than
I agree.
Than,
it's like a combination of Dune, Wizard of Oz. He loved Hidden Fortress from Akira Kurosawa.
Yeah, I mean,
Flash Gordon.
I mean, if anything,
Buck Rogers.
I mean, I understand it starts in the desert and it's like got sort of a messianic vibe to it, but that's pretty much where they part company, right? I mean, but whatever. I mean, that's a long conversation.
That's a different one. So with Sonic, this entire movie is, I want to say there's a good 20 to 30 minutes in dialogue and sequences that are exposition based to explain what is happening between the echidnas and the owls. What is this stone? And they make cheats. They make very bothersome cheats to me, where Sonic has had this map since the first movie. And then they're like, at one point, something about the emerald or something about this gem. And he goes, oh, I think the map has something to do with it. There's a gem on this map. And I'm like, well, when did that be discovered just now?
And that's where they actually do go Star Wars, and they have the Princess Leia hologram in the form of the owl come up and give some direction. Because I guess he said the magic word. I don't really know.
Don't know. It's all... He's had this map. It's been in his possession, and it is just wild to me. Because essentially, and this will be me admitting it, it's just a personal problem with me for how you tell stories. I think it's lazy. I think it's a cheat, and ultimately, it doesn't matter because it is children's entertainment. You are just trying to move the story forward in this adventurism, and ultimately, I just have to let it go. And what I'll say is that Sonic the Hedgehog is not a movie that I personally will ever revisit. It's just not the kind of energy in...
Well, if Carolina likes it, I'll be revisiting it.
Well, of course. No, of course.
So I may revisit it.
And if I have... I will be revisiting it if I am asked by Katie's nephews to watch it. I absolutely will watch it because watching them enjoy it is its own little pleasure. So for me, though, I know it's not for me. I can recognize who it's for. I can recognize what can work or what is effective enough. And I think that's what this is. Sonic the Hedgehog, I think, is popular and entertaining because it's effective enough. It utilizes an unhinged Jim Carrey, who for me is exhausting, and I grew up loving Jim Carrey. I find this performance of Robotnik from the first and second one, it is kind of exhausting.
It's kind of funny that he's working potentially to his end of his career doing like an extremely concentrated version of
what made him famous.
Of him.
Yeah.
And this is definitely like whatever he's doing, it's the most. He's doing the most he could do.
Well, and I will say this. The introduction and the delivery of the main antagonist, antagonist turn partner and collaborator on team is Knuckles, voiced by Idris Elba. Whenever I played the older games, I love Knuckles. Knuckles is my favorite Sonic character. I thought it was effectively done, even though it is essentially the Sonic version of Dave Bautista and Guardians of the Galaxy.
I was going to make that exact same, completely cribbed from Drax, or whatever.
It's Drax,
who is
just in this universe.
But I mean, that's if you're going to steal. I mean, to me, Drax is the funniest Marvel character in movies.
Yes, yeah. And I think he works insanely well in the first Guardians and in Infinity War. And there's a weird deviation in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 where he becomes almost like really aware that he's funny and leans into it, and I didn't like it. Well, but
they also gave him like somewhat more weight to carry, which is a mistake.
Yeah, I think so.
Like he should. I mean, he works in the way that he works, and using that character is about knowing where to use him, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You would never make a Drax movie or have a Drax series, right? I mean, that would be a mistake. He can't carry a thing. but as like a character who's in there, a supporting character for a certain kind of joke.
Yeah.
To me, he is very effective
And
quite funny.
Knuckles
And Batista is good at doing. I actually think Batista is a really good actor.
Oh no! Oh yeah! No,
We've talked about him in that
interesting.
opening scene of the new Blade Runner. It's just like
Blade Runner's great. Yeah,
I mean,
he's great in it.
He's pro wrestling has proven a pretty good training ground for
Oh,
actors.
I think that it is solely focused on creating personality, and you have to be a good performer, actor, in order to create those personas and personalities. So,
and also you get jacked while you do it. So that
God, his heyday in WWE. Holy crap! That guy was like chiseled like a statue.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah,
it's insane.
You're gonna get jacked.
So I will say, Knuckles becomes Drax by the end of the movie, especially in this once they're all like a family, and he's like, "I want to play baseball. Like, I will have the fun. Like, I'm like, this is Drax, and it's not bad.
No, I thought it was funny.
Yeah, and I thought the journey they take this initial antagonist through in order to realize that he can have another tribe, he can have, that it's simple, it's not profound, but it is, I think it's the appropriate kind of moral lesson that a children's movie should have. And I don't have many complaints. I've already voiced a number of them, but it's, I find it a little narratively lazy. I find it creatively, efficient. It's not insanely well crafted, but again, I think they're putting it in the amount of energy that they need to make this work, and that's fine. That's fine. It exists. I think there's a number of people who find enjoyment, but I couldn't. I definitely couldn't muster the energy to watch this myself. It's just not of the. It's just not on the level that I want even my children's entertainment to be, or my my. And when I say children's entertainment, that's almost specifically that, not family entertainment, because this would not be enjoyable to me as just a watch for myself. But I could enjoy it watching with kids who do enjoy it. Like, it is that energy level. It has that kind of mixture of humor that appeals to them. And I'm just not that. And I get it. I know. I'm aware. I know I'm the sourpuss who walks out of Sonic the Hedgehog who didn't have as good of a time as other people did. But then again, I know what I do enjoy, and I feel that void elsewhere, and so it's fine.
I mean, in terms of like rewatching it on my own accord, I mean, there's movies I like way more than this that I probably won't rewatch. Yeah. But that being said, in terms of I can only speak to my subjective experience. I can speak to a lot of things actually, but in terms of my subjective experience of the movie, I will say that outside of the bloated end sequence, the movie did sort of bring me along. Yeah. I laughed, didn't cry.
Definitely not.
But I didn't find myself like rolling my eyes or out of it until the end sequence just went on too long.
Yeah, it is a little bit exhausting, and it requires a dedication that I don't think it's an endurance test that I don't think is all that it's not effectively done.
And it doesn't
drops the ball a little
serve
bit.
the broader purpose of the movie, which is to be breezy.
Yeah,
it's not breezy. It's not fun.
Yeah,
it lasts too long to get to what the ultimate payoff is going to be, which is just going to be him becoming getting godlike powers.
Yes,
right.
Yeah.
Just
Super Saiyan.
You're gonna go there, and you can go there at any point in that fight, right? So just go there a little earlier.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think we land in the same place, which is that people know who this movie is for. If it's for you, you'll probably like it. I mean, you'll probably like it. And like if you're a parent who's dragged to it, I'll say I enjoyed it enough. Like I said, if it weren't, I could probably give it like, if there's like tiers of like children's or family whatever, movies that are great on their own. It's not in that tier, but it probably could have gotten to like the second tier of like pretty good.
Yeah.
Without that long end sequence, and it's still in the like that's fine tier, right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
You'll get some laughs. it's breezy. There are legitimately, like, I mean, there were legitimate, like, laugh out loud moments. Like, yeah, when the dancer comes out in the pose that he outside his tattoo, that's a great gag.
It's great.
I mean, I laughed at that 100%.
He's, like I said, that guy sells that scene.
Oh, that
if you didn't have that energy in that scene to counterbalance the absurdity of it, or to ground you in the absurdity of it, it fails. It fails miserably, and that scene works even though it's illogical.
Yes, even though it makes no fucking sense. Ambulance.
Oh my goodness.
Bayhem. This is our first Bayhem conversation.
This is our first Michael Bay conversation.
What's your top Michael Bay movie?
That's a good question. I think The Rock.
The Rock is
The Rock is exceptional, which even Michael Bay apparently feels the same, referencing his own movie.
I love it.
Ambulance. There is a
I love it.
Meta-textual awareness that Ambulance has that is so bizarre.
The Rock he's a wrestler. What does the person says?
Oh my god. It is so.
Although, I mean, when you make fun of yourself, I'm always okay with that.
I don't think he's making fun of himself. I don't think he has that kind of awareness.
You don't think he's pointing out how old he is? Like, that his best movie is...
I think he thinks he's great. I think Michael Bay thinks he's the greatest gift to cinema, and how this movie is shot tells you exactly how he thinks of himself. And it depends on how we interpret it. So do you think it's an awareness? Because
I thought he was making a little light. Right, a little light of his own age.
This movie is 2 hours and 16 minutes, and it doesn't stop. The energy is on essentially a Jim Carrey level of technicality. I walked out. I told my friend, I saw it with, you call him Inferior Ben McGinley. I saw it with him.
I mean, if the shoe fits.
I saw it with him, and I walked out. I said, that wasn't a movie. That was a burlesque act of a movie.
That was an experience.
It is an experience. I will say this. It is an experience. And it is wild. This movie is so ingrained in the chaos of the spectacle of action that it is so thoroughly exhausting, and it turns your head around quite literally. In some of the drone shots that this guy gets is, I think it should be illegal. Like it is so over the
like
top.
A warning before it if you get motion sickness.
I legitimately think if you get motion sickness, you will throw up during this movie. This movie is so overdone, overproduced, over-directed that
it's over the top. It's over the top
throughout,
intentionally, right? I mean, you can't
intentionally,
like whatever we think about Bay, and certainly there's much to be said about him.
Yeah,
he's making that choice. I mean, I think
it's overt. It's obvious.
I think it would whatever you think about it.
It's intentional.
This is not, and this is why I feel conflicted, right? Because I have to say, people like Bay do benefit a little bit in contrast to the sort of franchisization of movies and the sameness of movies, in that if you still have a sort of auteur theory view of cinema and you're interested in directors and what directors are trying to say with their movies, well, Michael Bay is a real director and he makes his movies, and his movies are unmistakable.
Yes.
Right.
This is true.
He is leaving his print on this.
The same director who has done Pain and Gain, Ambulance, The Rock, Transformers. You can tell it's the same.
Yes.
person.
Even in doing his franchise movies.
Yeah.
Like Transformers, it's him.
Yes.
And he has.
I mean, nothing says Michael Bay more than a transformer transforming over the low shot of a woman with massive cleavage as it jumps and in slow motion, and you're like, that's a Michael Bay shot. That's Michael Bay.
Yes, and I mean, so you have these sort of contemporary directors who make very odd kinds of movies, or not, I don't want to say odd. How do I want to describe it? I think of someone like James Cameron, right, who also is a real director, and a better director than Michael Bay.
Yes,
but who still makes
that. By the way, that takes a lot out of me because I don't I don't like James Cameron a lot, but I do agree he's a better director.
Well, and I mean, but like the highs of, I mean, my why I like what I would put Cameron above Bay is because the highs of what he does are very high.
Oh yes,
and that doesn't mean there aren't very low
no,
lows.
Like Terminator 2, Abyss. I mean, even True Lies.
But even like the things that are exceptional about Avatar are extremely exceptional. Like the visual, like that movie is old now, and they're still the best like computer generated characters anyone's ever done. I mean, his ability to create that world is unparalleled. What he does with it from a story perspective, that's another question.
It's dull. It's a dull story.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems there, but the
immersiveness of the 3D of the visual.
The you know, he's like a 3-point shooting specialist or something in the NBA.
Sure.
The thing he can do well, he can do better than anybody.
Sure. Yeah.
Or almost anybody, right? Which isn't to take away from all the things that he doesn't do as well.
Absolutely.
So you get these directors who make movies that you have mixed feelings about or you don't like, but I will say this, like, and I found this movie to be pretty exhausting to watch. And
it's exhausting.
Yes. And I certainly like the first half of it more than the second half.
Second half drags.
It's just so, like, what he's trying to do, sort of like, it's just the whole ambulance thing just goes on forever, and it just is so
way too long.
I get it, and I get what I mean. He clearly I did read some interview with him where he said he made one too many Transformers movies, and Spielberg told him to stop making the movies, which Spielberg denies. So he has, I mean, and that's why I lend some credence to the idea he might be making fun of himself, because he does seem to, in his late career, have developed at least enough self-awareness to admit to fucking up something.
Yeah.
Right? Which I don't think he would have early in his career. Say, I shouldn't have done that many Transformers movies. So maybe he's developed a sense of humor about himself, maybe not. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But setting that aside, I mean, so he's going to make an original movie now, and he clearly, I mean, this movie has an attempt to make a Michael Mann movie written all over it.
Oh my goodness! I mean, the opening shootout is Heat. I mean, it's his version of Heat, but the problem is Heat knows how to orient you into its place, setting, and action, and who the players are, and that's what makes Heat work. And the heist that goes wrong, or the shootout that happens in the streets, so thrilling because you know who the players are. You know it has an insanely articulated build up to this showdown, and you know where everything is, where everyone's situated, oriented in the place that, and not to say that there's a bit of chaos to it, because it is action, and it disorients you, I think, appropriately. In this movie, just chaos unfolds outside of this building with drone shots coming from above down at a massive speed.
No, but even more than that, he'll like go like this, and then he'll go wow,
yeah, and down, and then he'll tilt and twirl
so much,
and you don't know what's going on, who's who, and that kind of disorientation is bad because you disengage from that disorientation. You start not caring what's happening.
Yes, sort of a feeling of disengagement is a real good way to describe where this movie goes wrong.
Yes.
But it's still, like I said, I found that first half in the shootout to be way more effective than once they get in the ambulance.
I agree. Once it gets into the ambulance, it gets stretched out, dragged out in what is essentially a moving bottle episode that is not as they stretched out and add all these layers of drama and excuses to stretch it out, and that's what it feels like. It feels like narrative excuses to stretch out the concept.
Yeah, but it doesn't work, right? Because you can't keep people on the precipice of a huge crisis forever, because eventually it just gets exhausting.
Yes.
And also, people don't believe you, right?
Yep.
Like this, you lose credibility in the story, because like, and once again, so it's another mistake, right? It's similar to the sort of Sonic mistake, right? Where you want to keep things at a fever pitch, but you're not realizing that at some point on that plateau, people are just going to lose interest, or I lost interest.
I definitely did. I disengaged. I became ambivalent, but also, let's talk about how this guy does not know how to orient you into his story emotionally and in character. This is a big problem with this movie, which I think he utilizes cheap gimmicks and easy, I want to say easy drama connective tissue, where this is a veteran. You're supposed to care about this veteran no matter what is happening. And you don't you have no idea you have no idea the relationship he and Jake Gyllenhaal have, other than that they're brothers. One's white, one's black, and they make jokes about it, and it's an adoption-ish, situation. Probably, I mean, if you want to read into it, probably Jake Gyllenhaal's dad had something to do with his family not necessarily surviving, or
sure,
they take him under his wing. I don't know. And so the dynamic between the two is it again, when we talk about how like Sonic, and that essentially the Sonic games is moving forward, and so this idea of propulsion with Sonic works because it is about we're on an adventure, we need to go to A, B, C, D, E, just go through the story, and it gives that sense of energy and forward momentum. In this movie, it has the same it has the same tactic, but it's a problem because this is essentially a heist noir. I mean, this is about a veteran not being able to get insurance. He's fought for this country. He has insurance. His wife needs an experimental treatment. And he is in a dire situation. It's going to cost an absurd amount of money in order for his wife.
We're doing the was it John Q? What's the?
Yes, it's like John Q.
We're doing a John Q.
And so, at the core of it, it goes all the way back to the concept of this being on the outskirts of society and being in a dire situation, and then you choose to do something illegal to try and alleviate it. That is essentially noir at its core.
Yep. But it's also kind of like his riff on Dog Day Afternoon, right?
It's a little bit Dog Day Afternoon. It's a little bit Heat. All of those movies also have their roots in old noir, from Crisscross to Asphalt Jungle. These movies are about the American problem of the social problem, the social ills, economic, post-war problems. And you can articulate that. That's why, New Hollywood brought it back, neo-noir, and we're able to re-articulate it. And it can work. And this movie could work if you gave me a really good sense of who these characters are. But it is just constantly moving, constantly in montage. And I was telling Katie about my experience. I said, this movie is an experience. I will tell you that. And the narrative deviations that are so violent, the tone is violent too. It doesn't know how to balance its humor. It doesn't know how to balance its sense of thrills. It doesn't know how to balance its emotion. So it's all just wavering in chaos. It's just so unwieldy in a technical fashion and in a narrative fashion. This is a big problem. But also, what's hilarious in the movie, but also a big problem, is that it distracts you by introducing characters in violent tone shifts and narrative shifts, to introducing characters that seem like they have nothing to do with the main story that's happening. So you get introduced to these cops. You have no idea why you're in this cop car, and it comes off as strange. He makes Michael Bay references within that car. Then he introduces a guy who has the most specific job the FBI has curated, which is bank robberies in Los Angeles, apparently. And it's supposed to be a funny scene. People in my audience laugh because he's gay, and he's like, "I gotta go, honey, sweetie. Like, do I pay for? Are the stupid questions? Do we pay for those? All this thing." And then he goes, and then of course he's like, "I know this guy. I went to school with him." And I'm like, what is happening in this movie? And when
you're right, that is really precious.
It's really precious. Well, and I will give it some credence if it is supposed to be so outrageous, such an outrageous interpretation of a movie we've seen before, that it is self-aware. Maybe it's a big joke. Maybe it's overdone on purpose because I want to say maybe Michael Bay is making a commentary about the way we engage in the violence and the emotional.
I think he might be offering a commentary unintentionally.
Yeah, maybe unintentionally. And so the movie is just, it's outrageous. It's nonsensical. It has no grounding in emotion or credible character motivation, to the point where one of the most egregious things that happens in the movie is, I mean, basically the lesson of this movie in the 2 hours and 16 minutes is that these guys are brothers, and he needs to either take his brother out or not be with his brother because his brother's a psychopath. That is essentially the like narrative, and the realization, I need to stop my brother, is where it ultimately culminates to. And there's this whole deviation, second half subplot where the cartels come in on board, or Mexican drug,
some bad guys, some new group of bad guys
who are linked up,
just get
and
involved.
they're in their area, they're in their hideout, and they want the cop, and then it comes down to, no, we need to do the right thing, and so no, they're not going to get the cop, we need to make a stand. And then they like Michael Bay bad boys gun all these guys down, which is, fine. But then Jake Gyllenhaal goes, what'd you call him? My fake brother? He's my real brother, asshole. And then he murders the guy. Like, straight up murders a guy who doesn't have a gun. He's a psychopath. And the lady in front of me applauded that moment. And I was like, whoa, we should not be applauding anything this character. That's, by the way, an hour and 50 minutes, I want to say, into the movie.
Sounds about right.
And nothing this guy should be, nothing he does should be applauded. He is a psychopath, and Jake Gyllenhaal plays it well. It's just we have no orientation in their relationship, no grounding and understanding of why. Will Yahya Abdul-Mateen, who's also, I mean, none of the acting is like terrible. I like Garrett Dillahunt enough, as the head of the police, the SIS.
Yeah.
The FBI guy is kind of nothing, but I'm like, it's nothing egregious on the performers. They are fine. They are capable.
I mean, what's funny though, the best dynamic in the movie was between the SIS guy, the Garrett Dillahunt character, and like this woman who's around.
Oh my god! Well, and they dropped the ball with her too, because her introduction is, she's like she's like, we have no time to flirt. Like, stop flirting with me. We got a job to do. But it's like done in a flirtatious way, and then he makes a comment about getting them in handcuffs, and she's like, oh yeah, the metal kind, not with the fluff. Like, yeah. And you're like, what is happening?
Yeah, I liked it when it got horny like that. But I mean, I think the one of the few lines I can remember that was a funny line was like, you could lose a raccoon in there.
Oh yeah, because she's like, she's like, I swear to God, don't get your hot Cheeto dust in my hair. And he's like, you could lose a raccoon in there. Yeah. And it's like, but those are the three moments we can recollect them, and then they drop that character entirely.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh shit, that was just like little moments that you could, and that's fair. I like when a movie gives a side character that has personality and is not necessarily integral to the plot, and it just gives colorization to the dynamic of the city or what the situation. But there wasn't enough of that. Like, they needed to do more if that was the intention. I think he just thought of some clever, horny lines.
Yeah. But you like it too because it's like a cute, horny kind of fat woman.
Yeah.
And you don't see that a lot. She's cute. She's horny. She's funny. Give me some more of that character.
Probably a more interesting. It's interesting. I think the better version of this movie would be focusing on the SIS characters trying to stop a heist and robbery.
Yeah.
Versus, I think the perspective is actually all wrong.
We need to make the movie shorter, and we need to see the people in the ambulance not at all or way less.
Yeah, and it's about them stopping
because the tension at them is so high. I mean, there's a point at which, like, without crashing the ambulance, they get in like a knockdown, drag-out fight at the wheel. I mean, it's not believable, but it's also like, once again, like, if you keep it at that fever pitch forever,
it is.
People, it's just you can't have an hour of a movie at the absolute brink of complete collapse. It's just too long. Eventually, people are going to check out because eventually I checked out because it's just none of this is actually, the stakes aren't actually that high. They're going to keep surviving for the next hour. I know how long this movie is.
Yeah.
So you've raised it too high too soon. I mean, but here's the thing. you're right. Like, Bay just loves to give these little identifiers and then kind of move on, right? Like, oh yeah, he's a veteran. You should be sympathetic to him because he's a veteran. Yeah. And his wife needs
look at the dynamic he has with his brother. It's charming enough,
brothers,
right?
brothers, family. It's tough sometimes, right? I mean, that's it. That's the only thing.
Oh, and by the way, that goes into how the signifier of his wife has to constantly be holding the baby, even when she goes to a hostage situation at the hospital. I was like, nobody could have watched this baby. No, she has to be holding the baby because we have to know that she's a mom.
Although it's funny, right? Because that scene where they're laying down outside the ambulance at the hospital is a perfect example of the problem with Bay, which is that they're just gonna let that guy lay there and die, and he's right in front of a hospital. Like, that's not what would happen. They would try to keep him alive.
Yes, like
they try to keep criminals who get shot alive.
They do,
so they can be prosecuted, so they can investigate the crime. It's not I'm not saying that the cops or whoever's being altruistic, but like, you don't just you would never just let a guy bleed out with cameras around. You would say, save this guy's life so we can prosecute him. So the dramatic tension of that scene is brought about in a totally unbelievable way.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is that he's alive and they're just gonna do nothing about it.
Yeah. Because
I guess he's a bad dude.
I guess. Or like, some cops died that day. A lot of cops died that day.
So you just don't...
Ridiculous.
But also it's the same thing, like, oh, we got to put the cop in the ambulance because then they're going to let this chase go on, like, forever. Right? Which they would never do.
No.
Like, the cops would never do... I'm sorry. A cop that may or may not be alive and in that ambulance is not going to keep them from taking that person off the highway.
It's also... A really good cops and people who have been in hostage who have the training in hostage situations, essentially what they do is aid and abet this ambulance by shutting down freeways to let it just travel for free because it's going to be rush hour. If they found themselves in rush hour traffic on the freeway, they would stop and then they would just have the showdown there. Like it ultimately goes to a conclusion that the police could have oriented and planned for ahead of time.
I mean, LA cops know how to end a car chase.
Yeah.
That's one of their That's one of their favorite things to
do. They know how to end a car chase even when it's not supposed to be dangerous.
Yeah,
they've flipped people's cars who don't deserve it.
Restraint is not their move, right? They're more maximalist in their approach.
It's true.
But yeah, I mean, you've already sort of hit on it, the kind of tonal just violence of this movie.
Oh.
Where, I mean, he spends some of the movie wanting to be Michael Mann, except when he wants to be like a Guy Ritchie.
A little bit. I mean, Wrath of Man did this better. Wrath of Man is But
also even earlier Guy Ritchie, where he wants to just introduce these, like, just smash cut to some new person you don't even know.
Yep.
But it's not really for comedic effect, which is how Ritchie uses it when he's doing it well.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, he cannot escape who he is, right? As with us all, it's a Greek tragedy. You cannot escape your nature. Because the motherfucker is so sentimental.
Oh, it's too sentimental.
So sentimental. He loves the swelling music. He loves...
It's just constant.
He loves to make this beautiful woman, this beautiful hero who has this character transition where she starts to care when... At the beginning of the movie, she's just a hard-boiled EMT. He wants everyone to have this tremendous pathos. And
it's not earned. And none of it's earned.
But in any case, like... I mean, one of the many things that makes Michael Mann such a great director is he doesn't care about any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually makes the characters in some ways more interesting. And also, in their own way, even a little more sympathetic because you can kind of... one thing I love about Mann's movies is he gives you the freedom to see these people as you wish.
Yeah.
And he has no need to sort of signal to you or tell you who the good guys and the bad guys are.
Yes.
Nor does he seem to really believe in the idea of good guys and bad guys.
That's his strength.
Right? He's just interested in sort of... He's curious, right? We come always back to curiosity for me. He's curious in his subjects, and he watches them, and he lets you see them, and he lets you make your own decision. I mean, there's no question who Michael Bay thinks we know what he thinks this movie's about. We know who the heroes are. We know who the tragic heroes are. We know who the tragic sort of villains are, and we know who just the straight villains are.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the EMT is the hero. The brother, you know, the veteran brother is a tragic figure.
Yeah.
The other brother's kind of a tragic figure, but also the villain. And then
there's the straight villains of the Mexicans.
These cartoonish Mexican gangsters, right?
Yeah.
And so too on the cop side, they're all kind of heroes, but maybe, you know, I don't know. I mean, it's just there's not a single ambiguous character in this movie. I mean, I guess they try to make the brothers be ambiguous, but they're not. Right, and to whatever extent they have some sort of superficial ambiguity that's just in service of this broader point, which I don't want to call it a point because I'm not sure what the point is. What, like, we should all be nicer to each other or something?
I don't. Yeah, it's absurd.
But it's just it's so it's so high romantic and it's so sentimental at the end of the day, which is such a clash with the kind of insane nihilism implied by a level of violence that, I mean, even by the standards of one of these movies, is insane.
It's insane. Yeah, I mean, it's really over the top.
I mean, this would be, even in a city like Los Angeles, where we do have car chases and we do have shootouts, some of the things that, particularly the scene near the end where, like, the dummy car opens up with, like, a minigun.
Ridiculous.
Like, that would be 10 times, maybe that's even underselling it, 100 times scarier and worse than the worst thing that has happened in LA in, you know, our lifetime.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, I like that what you're saying here, because essentially this ambiguity that guides Mann's work, which is, I think, influenced by the just a traditional sense, not just curiosity, but traditional sense in cinema, in the genre that they're doing. Heist movies are about, and noir is about rooting you into a different situation and questioning the morality of society and the morality of character in order to have a sense of ambiguity, to give the idea that there is no right or wrong answer. And I mean, even in this movie, it's explicitly stated, like, even Will is like, we're the bad guys. When Will's not a bad guy, and he might has done some bad things, but the intentions there in noir are admirable and I think relatable to a lot of people. And this movie is kind of a betrayal of all that. The ambiguity that guides the questions of why people would put themselves in these situations, into a dire situation, because of society, because of their personal circumstance, because of their personal perspectives. And even in the last 20 years, we've had numerous movies that have ruminated on this quite expertly, like Spike Lee's Inside Man. I think even Guy Ritchie's Wrath of Man is masterful in comparison. I didn't love the movie, but this movie is such a...
No, but it's good. I mean, Wrath of Man is good,
it's a good movie. Say. Yeah, it's a tactful and actually kind of matured approach to what he has done in the past.
Yeah, well, I think we talked about that, right? I mean, what I said is, it struck me as like his late career version of something like Irishman or First Reformed, right? It's not as good as either of those movies, but it is him actually thinking about, like, the movies he's made and kind of what they say and what they mean.
Yeah, and that's I think the initial problem is Michael Bay fills his movies and pretty much all of them to the brim with allusions of things he thinks he's saying. He is a very pro-military, pro-cop kind of guy. I mean,
how much cooperation did he get from LAPD for this? I mean, that's all LAPD
I would be surprised. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he got a lot, but also how he portrays them at the end of the movie is pretty. I think they wouldn't have stood for that. Like I don't think they would have appreciated how they are portrayed at the end of the movie.
Yeah. I don't know. Interesting to think about. I mean,
yeah.
I still think they mostly come off as pretty well.
No, I agree. I think they are this dynamic that he has in the sense of who's good, who's bad. I mean, he never leaves the idea that the cops are essentially in the right. Jake Gyllenhaal and Yahya Abdul-Mateen, Will and Danny, they're in the middle. And then there's the bad guys of the drug world and of the LA underworld. It's just very interesting
what he understands and doesn't understand, because he understands some important things, right? Like, he puts the cop in the ambulance to make it at least plausible they wouldn't just take these people out. Mm-hmm. He has to make at least one of the brothers ambiguous, so you root for him. Especially if he's committed to one of them being a total psychopath.
Yeah.
Like, he understands certain structural things. I mean, clearly he understands some things about filmmaking. He's been very successful at it, whatever we think about him.
He understands it enough to make cheats where I think a lot of people would not notice. But, I mean, I think they're pretty obvious.
Because, I do think that scene you referenced where the good brothers, like, we're the bad guys, that was like at least a character movement that resonated to some extent.
Sure.
It's like he is coming to terms with what he's got himself into.
Yes.
Right? And that's a progression that makes sense, and the actor sells it. But
like I said, the actors are doing a hell of a job for material that is very simple and underwritten.
But in a way, it's like I said, it's always just too much of one thing and not enough of the other. Like you said, just come back to the man comparison. Too much camera shit, too much sentimentality, too much of too invested in your toys, too invested in, you know, like they try to have these lighter moments, like when they sing the Christopher Cross song, that just don't come off at all.
That scene can work in that movie, but how they do it, it's wrong. It's wrong. Like they make it such a weird humor moment that is so violently against the tone that they have set.
Yeah, because you're pot committed to Gyllenhaal being this psycho.
Yeah,
right. That's the driving force. He needs to be a psycho. You've decided that, and so.
He literally has these like wide psycho eyes in his mask, like when he's gonna go have a shootout with the police, which he gets talked out of. But he's got these psychotic eyes, and you're like, yeah, this guy's a psychopath. Yeah. That's how you've portrayed it.
So I mean, I don't know. This movie is wild.
It's wild. It is an experience, but it's not necessarily one I'd recommend.
But like I said, I mean, I don't know. I want to like a movie like this because I like adrenaline type action movies.
Me too.
I don't think we're particularly good at making them anymore.
No.
I appreciate the fact that Bay at least makes some minimum standard of being a filmmaker, right? Being someone who has a sense of style and a sense of what he's trying to do, at least from a visual standpoint. And I don't even mind some of the frenetic stuff, but it's too much.
It's just constant. There is no break. It's just 2 hours of constant energy.
Yeah, you're right. That's why at a minimum they should have focused even more on the cops, because that gives you the sort of pacing and tonal shift that you need. Mm-hmm. Some of those long sequences in the ambulance, which I think are supposed to be like claustrophobic and sort of very dramatic, they just go too long and it's too much.
Yeah. Like,
you can't have them have like a 2-minute fist fight at the wheel of an ambulance. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't make sense.
It looks ridiculous.
It looks silly. Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't, like I said, it's people. Here's the problem, right? You're pushing them to a crisis which should derail the whole project, but it doesn't. It just is a thing that happens and then goes away.
Yeah.
I mean, if you push people to the point of crisis where, in spite of everything, right, in spite of their peril, their goals, all of that, they cannot stop themselves from getting in an insane fight at the wheel of an ambulance.
Yeah.
If you take them there, they can't keep going along the way they've been. They can't just be like, okay, let's keep going after that.
But they do.
That's just like a level of crisis that is so high that to have them then just be like, okay, let's keep going after it. It's very. I just found the movie, once they're in the ambulance, I just found the movie so deflating because it's just, like I said, you can't have. If you take them there, you have to pay it off, and if you don't pay it off, it's like if I were to just come over, like kick you in the dick, and then just keep talking like nothing had happened.
Yeah.
that's absurd.
Yeah.
That's absurd. And he tries to paper over the absurdity with just more flashing lights and, look at the monkey, whatever.
Because the chaos and the frenetic energy is just
so,
constant. It's just
so, but it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't. At some level, you're burnt out. I just felt burnt out by this movie.
Me too.
Your body has released whatever adrenaline it had in reserve, and now you're just sitting there, almost like desensitized to it in some kind of an aesthetic shock.
Yeah.
Where, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And he keeps on escalating, like I said, up to the scene with where these dudes drive a dummy car with a minigun and just waste a bunch of cops. And even this, it's just, it can't have impact because
it doesn't.
At that point, I'm just waiting for this shit to end.
Yeah, I was definitely numb by that point. No, and I totally agree with you. I was words that you used, deflated. I was ambivalent. I was exhausted. That's what this movie does to you. And not in a good way. None of that is good. None of those words should be used to comment on a movie.
Like I said, I wish it were good.
Me too.
I wish it were good. I
agree.
Because
this is the kind of movie that I do enjoy.
Because it could be. It could be. Yeah, you want to see movies that are. I mean, I guess we just need Michael Mann to make more movies. Because I want to see movies like this that are aesthetically propulsive, dark, energetic, and ambiguous. But it's not ambiguous. We've covered that.
Yeah,
I think that. I wish that. Yeah, I mean, because I think. I don't know. I think there would be a path for a movie like this to be something I would enjoy, but this one is not enjoyable.
Definitely not. Well, I think that's this week. That's
I feel good about it.
2 movies this week. I think next week we got Fantastic Beasts. If that's something you've been keeping up on,
I actually refer to us as Fantastic Beasts.
I mean that's fair. I'll take that.
No, I have not watched any of the Harry Potter post. Any of the prequels or whatever we call them.
I wonder, throwing you into it, if it would matter.
Well, let's see if my brain geniusness is enough to handle Grindelwald. A new Grindelwald.
There's something else coming out.
Grundle.
There's something else coming out next week. I'll figure out what else we're going to watch. But I guess 2 weeks from now, very exciting week. We got Northman. We got Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
That is a big weekend. That's a big weekend.
I think even Celine Sciamma's new movie comes out that weekend, Petite Maman, which a lot of people that I still haven't seen, but a lot of people thought it was great last year. But we're finally getting a U.S. release of it. So I'm there's stuff coming out, and we'll be keeping you up to date. That's kind of the point.
Up-to-Date Cinephiles.
Ben Thelen, Dead Reckoner Podcast.
Kyle Bruehl, I know movies and you don't.
Yes, and I suppose that's it. There goes the cat. I guess we'll see you next time.
That's right. Shout out to Colin.